Welcome back to Worldview. Now, there are times in our youth when we think we'll live forever. Our own mortality never enters our consciousness until tragedy strikes someone near to us. Could be a friend in high school taken by an auto accident, a grandparent who dies of cancer, or even a senseless tragedy playing out on television like the recent bombings in Boston with the marathon. Yet we continue to deny our own mortality, and as the hands of the clock sweep relentlessly, reminders sink in closer and closer to home. Children grow, friends transition one by one, and we realize ain't a one of us leaving this planet alive. My next guest is a very dear friend who also helps the people around her step into their power. For years we would hear her refuse to disclose her biological age, saying it's just a number, not who I am or how I feel. Then Dr. Rickie Moore faced several serious medical challenges, and it was during her recovery that she had a moment of epiphany about the aging process and acknowledging the gifts we're all given. Together with her partner, Dr. Henry Marshall, they've helped thousands through many trials and tribulations of life. I'm going to play for you a brief segment about her new work, Staying Alive.
Pain is an enchantress, a muse. She came to me that awful night when my mind was blank, no thoughts, blocked pure consciousness, and I heard, "You've come to earth for a purpose. You've served your purpose. Now you can relax and go home." The message came in. A wave of relief washed over me. If the pain and suffering becomes unbearable, I can leave. Knowing I had the power to let go when I chose gave me the will to live.
Rickie joins us here now from Amsterdam to talk about the path of her new life. Dr. Moore, welcome to Worldview.
Oh, it's a pleasure to talk with you, Dennis. It's, what fun to be able to elaborate a little bit on this purpose I've discovered this late in life.
Well, we're going to upload your entire tape as a separate clip for those who view the show regularly. I'd like to begin, though, with how you're feeling today, because that's important, because we had to delay this a week, and why it is that you've embarked on this new path.
Well, today I feel wonderful. It's hard to imagine dying ever. It's one of those things about the denial of death is so prevalent that as soon as we begin to feel really good, we think, well, nah, that's not going to happen. But the truth is, I'm so beautifully aware that it will happen, and it's probably and definitely one of the more important events that I will ever face this lifetime. So, in fact, I'm planning to have a beautiful ending. I've had a beautiful life, and I intend to have a beautiful ending. So, for many years, I've been helping people to age gracefully. And I had no whit of an idea that I would end ungracefully. But having 4 major operations within 5 months sort of took the wind out of me. And I got very close to wanting to die. And what I realized then, and in the midst of probably the worst depression I could ever imagine, I really was ready, willing, and wanting to go. And that's when this little universe, how the universe gives you the muse comes and says, you don't have to suffer to the bitter end, You have a choice. You've served your purpose. You had a purpose. You've served it. Now you can relax. Go home. Henry interpreted that, my partner, as go home to Brouwersgracht, where we live. It was very easy for him. Just go home. Come home. And I did realize that maybe I was too depressed to make the decision then for euthanasia. And now I am given this message and I know now how very, very important it is for all of us to realize we have a choice. We have a choice.
And especially living there in the Netherlands, where, it is accepted that people who have many physical challenges and decide that they've come to the same realization that I don't want to go through my life completely racked and filled with pain. What's it like, from your perspective, to go through all of those physical challenges? You said 5 operations in 4 months, or I think it was 4 and 5 months, and wake up and realize that you wanted to help others understand this process and what it's all about.
It's sort of, for me, Dennis, it's the same thing that I've had all my life. I have been guided to do what I do. I cannot say I planned to become or I planned to do this. I have just sort of followed my intuition and where I was guided to go. And I was guiding people into graceful aging, wrote some wonderful songs about aging. At some point, I'd love to sing at least one of them for you because it's a kick. But I love the concept of the calling. It is a calling now to say, hey, come on, not everybody can age gracefully. If you can, follow the rules, eat well, exercise, have a lot of friends, do all the things that are normally acceptable for aging. And what if you cannot? What if you really, I lost the sight of my eye because of a hole in the retina, so I'm now, I have one good eye, which I'm very grateful for. It could be worse. I could have no good eye. And I'm not really able to walk more than a block at a time. So I'm basically invalid, as they say. I'm now suddenly, from a gracefully aging role model for how to do it well, I'm practically paraplegic. And I lost my identity, and it doesn't matter because I am honestly, really and truly, I am more deeply appreciative of the moment at hand, really living in the present moment, and more grateful for everything I have. It's like life has become much more meaningful, especially since I know, hey, if it gets too tough, I'm out of here. This body will let go and I will go on to wherever. And, so I'm joyful. I'm really joyful.
We're talking with Dr. Rickie Moore here on Worldview with Dennis Campbell. Rickie, when the debate over Obamacare raged in 2010 and they were about to pass that particular bill, a very reasonable measure became highly politicized, and that was one of end-of-life preparation. That suddenly became death panels and Obama's going to kill grandma. And yet, and we had almost a similar sort of debate here in the United Kingdom. You read stories about people who make the decision to conduct what's called death tourism, in which they literally will travel to another country in order to be able to exercise a choice of when they actually decide they want to end their life. Why is this so difficult for so many people to embrace this, eventual end of life and exit from the body? Is it just denial, or is there something deeper going on?
Well, I think both. I think the denial of death Becker wrote about it in The Denial of Death many years ago, and I think that's absolutely there. It's impregnated in all of us. But worse than that is, I think, every basic religious doctrine has "thou shalt not take thy own life," and we get those messages from religions very early on, and they stick to the cells of the body. Somehow we are afraid to end a life without God's doing it for us, and it's the ridiculousness of that. It's very sad because people, I can give you beautiful examples of people who have assisted leaving, and I call it leaving now. So it's like I'm writing about living and leaving. And if you want to live well, you have to understand and embrace that leaving can be and should be not just tolerable, but beautiful. If we live well, by the end of life, you're ready to go. Enough is enough. And depending on the quality of life, of course, everybody. But the truth is, we need to get rid of those in early on doctrines that say "thou shalt not." And I'd say, I just recently saw a beautiful documentary called "Choosing to Die," written by Terence Pratchett, who's a wonderful British author, a beautiful guy. And in his lovely documentary, well done, he interviews the wife of Hugo Claus, and also a Belgian magical writer. And Hugo Claus was diagnosed with a disease that would have, he was dying. He did not want to last to the end. And his wife describes having gone to the hospital where he was with a bottle of the night he was going to drink his goodbye, and brought a bottle of champagne and a cigarette, which he thought, well, maybe he'd want his last cigarette, and neither of which were allowed in the hospital. And she got into the bed with him, and he took what he needed to do, and she started to sing to him a little song they loved, and he started to sing with her, and he died in her arms singing. Now, to me, and she looks into the camera at some point, Dennis, and she says, how could anybody say this was not a beautiful way to go?
And knowing you and Henry, your wonderful husband, I'm sure something beautiful will also befall you. This is fascinating stuff, Rickie. I want to thank you for joining us here on Worldview and sharing this very, very difficult subject, but one a lot more people need to hear.
Thank you for making it possible for a lot more people to hear, Dennis. I love you. Bye-bye.
We've been speaking with Dr. Rickie Moore. Her work with her husband, Dr. Henry Marshall, can be found on their website, www.inpeacenet.com. And you can now follow her on Twitter on this journey. She is at Rickie Moore. That's RICKIE MOORE and the number 4 at the end. You're watching Worldview with Dennis Campbell. Stay right here.